Hey, everybody. I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time to share how I use GitHub for my solo consulting practice. So I don't use it like as a software developer, so I might be doing some things wrong, quote unquote. But I just want to keep it simple and I just want to have like all my code backed up with versioning and stuff so that I can roll back to previous versions or go back and find some stuff that's needed. So it's really good for reproducible science. It's really good for keeping track of stuff. So I advise people to think about using these kinds of methods. So the first step is to create an account on GitHub. It's totally free. Go on github.com. It should be straightforward. Once you have an account, you can open the dashboard. So you see here, I'm already on the dashboard. And then you go in, you click this new button. So this is going to create a new repo, which is short for repository. And the idea is, so you have an owner. So this is my consulting brand, JB Statistical Consulting, and I give it a name, right? So this would be a tutorial, for example, okay? And then you can give it a description. So repo to show how to use GitHub. And you decide if you want it public or private. I would advise private, especially if you're working with clients. Most of the time their data is confidential. So I'll show you later an extra step for data confidentiality. But if you don't want to share stuff with clients, with the public, I would make sure to make it private. And if you have a small team, you can give access to just a small number of people. So I use public for my biostatistics reading list. Maybe some of you follow it. So that's because I want to give access to anybody with the link to the material I post there. But for my consulting practice, I use private. Then you can add a README file. I would advise to do this. So it's basically just a text file explaining what the repo is about, and it's going to show on the main page of the repo, which is always interesting. Add git ignore. This I would definitely use a git ignore. So what I do is, like, anything my clients send me, I put them in the same folder on my computer as the code that's going to be on GitHub, but I add the files to a git ignore. So that means these files are ignored and they're not uploaded into Git. And it's just for extra security. Like the data I work with is often strictly confidential. So I can't be putting this online in any shape, form, or matter. So the git ignore is really important. And then you just create it. So it's going to create a repo. So here we go. So we have the repo. You can see there's a README that just says tutorial repo to show how to use GitHub. You can add some descriptions there. Now the next step is to use a tool that that's called GitHub Desktop. I mean, usually you can use the command line and use Git without using this interface, but it's really easy for people that aren't like super proficient with computer programming and using like command line stuff. So you just download it. So I have a Windows. If you have a Mac OS, whatever, you go get the good version. So you download this software, you install it. Once that's done, you'll have this kind of interface, which is GitHub Desktop. And then you'll go to clone repository. And you'll go and find your repository in here. So you just have to connect your account to the software, and then it's going to say, okay, tutorial, I see it on GitHub. So I'm going to clone that. And there we go. So it's going to clone it on our personal computer, and I'll show you where. This is where my repo is cloned, and you see there's now a folder called tutorial. And in here, there's the README that we saw earlier. I'll just open it with Notepad. So you see it's just like a text file tutorial repo to show how to use GitHub. So anything you put in here, especially code. So let's say I change this. Let's make some changes. So let's say this was a code document or anything at all that changes. You save it. Once you go into GitHub Desktop, you're going to see here there's going to be changes, and they're going to show you in green. So the changes are only that I've added lines. If I go back to this document and let's say I remove a line and I save it, if I go back on GitHub Desktop, now it's saying this line was removed. So every time you make changes, they're going to be tracked by GitHub. And then you can push these to the online remote version of your code. And this is going to serve as versioning and backup. So basically here I can write update readme. Okay, we try to give like concise and informative names, and we can write a little description. So made some updates for the tutorial. So once we're satisfied with this, we can commit. One side note, if you're working with a small team and GitHub gives you the opportunity to work on projects simultaneously, so two people can be working on the same code. When you're going to commit your code, you're going to push the code because you're okay with it. But if someone else who's not the owner of the repo makes a change, that person is going to make a pull request, and you're going to see what they want to change, and you'll have to approve. And if there's any conflicts with what you did, you'll have to go line by line and check and decide how you want to handle the conflicts. So that's called merging conflicts, but it only happens if multiple people are working at the same time. But it's a very, very important feature for keeping track of code and working simultaneously, instead of sharing files and then changing the dates and calling it version 2, version 3, version 4, final, all that good stuff that you probably know about. So now I'm alone on this repo, so I don't have any problems with conflicts and merging, so I can just go ahead and push this. So it's going to say, okay, everything's good. And if I go back on GitHub, I'll update this page. So now you see my tutorial document changed. And this will be the same for any code. And you can also look at the history of commits. So you see I have the initial commit when I created it, and I have a commit called update readme, which is the commit we did together. And you'll have the whole history, and you can always go and look back at older versions and revert if ever you make some mistakes or stuff like that. So anybody using code, especially once we start being a little bit more serious, this is an invaluable tool. So you'll have this folder that's going to be cloned on GitHub, and you'll be able to just create new code programs and organize everything in here, push them to GitHub online, and everything's going to be reflected online in this private repository that you can share with teammates. So I hope this helps. Have a nice day.